You can say this. Let's whip into it.
Wanted me, I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
Hey guys, it's Paige with VLG Marketing, and today we are going to be discussing how to use your brand as a secret weapon and stand out in crowded markets. Let's dive in.
All right, guys, so I'm a little bit obsessed with the brand Liquid Death right now.
Okay.
Show some more enthusiasm.
Do you guys know what that is?
I thought it was beer
I also
Me
thought
too.
it was beer.
because the first time I saw it was at like a concert venue.
Yes. Okay, so I thought it was either a beer because it's in like a true 40 ounce.
It fits
can.
in your koozies as a
Yeah.
beer too. So
Yeah, I thought it was either a beer or like a seltzer marketed toward the metal crowd.
A little bit of a nostalgia vibe too.
Yeah, for sure. And so I never knew what it was. And the other day I was driving and I saw a Liquid Death truck and I was like, I did not realize they were big enough of a brand
to be distributing
to be
that
like,
much.
yeah, to have their own trucks distributing. And so I went and was looking them up, and they're valued at $700 million or something
Which
insane right now.
It's
Wow.
crazy because I
It's
feel
insane.
like I only found out about them like last summer.
Yeah, I don't think they.
Yeah.
I don't know when they were founded, but I don't feel like they've been around for a long time at all.
Their brand is everywhere. Because I've saw it at one concert venue and then I went to another concert not too long after and I saw it again. And that's the only water brand at those concert venues to
Oh,
drink.
really?
Yeah, it was like exclusive, which is
I
better
mean-
than some of the other ones. I won't mention any
Yeah.
names. 'Cause I don't want to get into that debate.
Maybe owned by
Like
a
you-
big red brand. or something.
Yeah, the water is
Yeah.
not great.
Like a flat water, Voss.
What?
You know, Voss or Fiji if you don't have Voss.
Yeah, you know, anything you got's good.
Yeah, we have out of the faucet.
Like from a hose?
Tap water.
What country's that from?
Why do people have such hot opinions about that particular water? We don't have to mention it, but seriously, people hate it.
You shall not
I don't
be
know why it
named.
is, but-
Yeah. But so I'll take Liquid Death over that water any day.
Oh my God, just get the water. We're done talking about water.
Yeah, so I kind of went down the rabbit hole on them. They're definitely sort of a buzzy brand right now,
Mhm.
and if you look and do some digging, you can kind of see why. It makes sense. What Liquid Death has done is they've basically said, okay, we're going to sell water, and we're going to appeal to this particular person who likes this type of aesthetic, essentially.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that, and it's really interesting that I don't see this being done more in the B2B space in general. I think people get caught up in, well, this is our corporate brand.
They like
We can't break
keep
away
their
from
brand in a box and they
Right.
don't want to like break outside that box.
that. And what's interesting is you kind of brought it up with the like the nostalgia play, like the culture, the 90s culture is kind of in right now. And along with that is sort of the rock, grunge, metal kind of
Yeah,
thing,
totally.
vibe. And
vibes.
vibes. Yeah, vibes.
What's the vibe for tomorrow?
What do you mean, Anthony? What's the vibe?
Vibes, girl.
But that aesthetic, you want aesthetic instead?
I think
That's the thing.
aesthetic is better than vibes,
We
but
need-
you know what? It's all the
But
same
we
thing.
also should interchange them out, right?
Yes.
Aesthetic, vibe,
Yeah.
same thing.
Same thing. But that's very in right now. And so they caught this wave of we're going to appeal to this metal culture type thing. And then all of a sudden that became the cultural, phenomenon with people harkening back to the 90s and that being the in thing right now. So they caught a wave of people that they didn't expect to either.
Basically, what they did is they've now stood out with the way that they're positioning their brand.
Yeah, for sure. And they took their product and just said, yeah, it is water, but how do we make people feel connected to that in a way that makes them feel a part of something that they already want to be a part of? So I just think there's something interesting there that B2B brands can learn from and emulate that I absolutely think there is not enough of right now.
You mentioned this earlier, which reminded me, Red Bull has done this as well.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they were probably one of the first to do it as far as just connecting with an entire, culture is not the right word, but
Well, they
Community.
yeah, community. Yeah,
Community.
where they adopted and connected themselves to extreme sports. And to this day are basically, they're more an extreme sports brand than they are an energy drink company, I guess.
Right.
in a
but
lot
they're
of
very
ways.
mainstream.
Very,
Is what they've done.
You think Red Bull, you think, Red Bull base jumping, you think like the Red Bull
Yeah.
planes, you
Right.
think Red Bull
Well, they even sponsor things on the
Fluton
Olympics.
or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy how they've basically, they just sell an energy drink, but they're more connected to the extreme sports community than they are anything else, I think.
Agreed.
The same thing sort of happened in surf culture as well. You would walk into JCPenney's or just some generic store and there'd be Quicksilver and Burton and all these
Oh yeah.
skate brands or surf brands everybody thought it was so cool
It became
to be
super
connected.
mainstream.
Exactly. Like they started as just a part of this tight knit community, this niche community, and these brands
Niche.
were adapted niche. We can debate
We want
that
to get into the
Yeah,
niche
that's
or
our
niche
debate
later. Here we
debate.
go.
Yeah.
But they somehow crossed over into being these mainstream brands. And Paige had an example.
Yes. So Aviator Nation is one that came to mind when we were talking about this. It's a brand that started, I want to say like 10 years ago in Laguna Beach.
Mhm.
And they started with just like matching type of sweatsuits. But
Cute.
and then for men, they had like a bunch of board shorts. But that's all
No
they
matching
started with.
sweatsuits for
No,
me.
not for men. No,
Not yet.
sorry.
Bummer.
But now
they
do.
probably do. Yeah.
Hey, they've come a long way. But it started as pretty much a wife and husband who their biggest passion was surfing, and that's kind of how they started the brand. And now it's gone to the other extreme to where it's literally in Highland Park Village,
Mm.
and like other people are buying it now just for the brand and the aesthetic of the brand. No one here is a surfer,
Right,
obviously,
right.
but they just really feel connected with the brand because they've kind of made a community out of it.
Yeah.
Which like reminds me of Pit Viper. They've essentially done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those were super bro shades, and I think people started wearing them ironically.
That's an understatement, I think.
Okay, but
Super bro
I
shades.
Super bro
I
shades.
do ski, and I'm telling you right now, I would love to buy a pair of Pit Viper
Yeah.
ski goggles, and everybody wears them now, and they've even changed their product to
Yeah.
fit the market that they've extended out into.
My pit's on.
There's even a brewery locally in DFW that has like a sponsorship with them because they even have shades that are OSHA approved. And that
Wow.
came,
Oh, wow.
that came
Oh my
I know,
gosh.
that came from a super niche shade for this certain type of person market, and now it's
Mhm.
extended into mainstream culture, and they've
Yeah.
really done
Yep.
well with that.
Almost like Chubbies is another one that came up
Yes.
in this kind of same,
Yeah.
and people
Chubby's
love that
brought
about
back the
them.
5-inch
Totally.
inseam.
Oh my God, so handsome!
And thank God they did. I'm just gonna say, I
gonna
love
say it right now.
shorts have been too long for a very long
Yes.
time.
I agree, Chris.
And they look horrible.
Right.
Like dudes have looked out of proportion for a
9-inch
long
seam.
time, and I just want to say
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chubbies.
Chubbies.
But they did the exact same thing.
they appealed to that bro culture, whatever you want to say, but it led to something larger because they didn't take themselves too seriously. And I think
Yes.
that's kind of the recurring theme when you're creating a brand or
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're expanding or extending your brand, not taking it too seriously. And I think that's where B2B can go wrong sometimes.
Do I know what product I'm selling? No. Do I know what I'm doing today? No. But I'm here and I'm going to give it my best shot.
Chris, you were actually just telling us about another brand that you were obsessed with that was doing something similar.
Yeah, I've been following this brand for a while. They literally were the definition of creating a brand and not a product or a business.
That's
Okay.
cool.
So it started as poolside.fm. And then they changed it to Pool Suite. But they basically founded this website as an internet radio station. Literally,
Mhm.
that's it. If you go to the site, poolsuite.fm, the setup of the player is like 80s Mac.
Yeah.
And off of that, they existed for a few years and built a fan base where they would just play kind of new wave poolside type music.
Okay.
And then they expanded that because they're like, we have all these listeners, these people that like this particular aesthetic. What can we do with this? So they licensed a bunch of photos from Club Med.
It's like Club Med, but everything is naked.
They're sticking with that whole
They're sticking with
brand
that.
look.
They're sticking with
Because
that
that's what
theme,
people were
right.
attracted to.
Love
They were
it.
attracted to that aesthetic and that
That's what they
vibe.
use to decide
And-
on the product.
Exactly. And so they were like, well, what can we create out of this that could be a product or a business? And they created just a small e-commerce business out of selling sunscreen and lotions and
So simple.
random stuff like
yeah.
that. But it's all themed in that same way. And so all of their emails look like direct marketing ads. One of the best examples of not taking yourself too seriously was when Pool Suite was launching Vacation. They created a title generator for all of their fans on Instagram. And they were basically
Oh,
teasing the
fun.
brand and said, hey, come work for us, jokingly.
Yeah.
But you would put your name in there and it would generate a title. And then it would spit out this branded vacation business card for you.
That's
And it was
so
That's
crazy
super cool,
titles. And
yeah.
mine, for example, was like
Of course
regional.
you did it.
Of course I did. Was
He's the target
re-
market.
Exactly, I was regional banana broker. So it was these insane, like
Right.
little
Oh, that's
fun
fun.
things.
Thinking on a larger scale of brands, Carhartt
Yeah.
has done this.
Yeah.
They've been around since I think like the 1800s, and their brand's always been for like the working guy.
Mhm.
Yep.
Look at how inclusive they are now. Like they're very trendy, very mainstream now. And those are all kind of B2C. How do you think that a B2B could take this approach?
Not enough B2B brands are using this approach, in my opinion. There's a lot of stinginess when it comes to brand, which
Definitely.
is understandable because everybody wants to come across as professional. We're selling business to business
Keep the
here.
brand recognition.
But I mean, if you just go a level deeper, that type of attitude crumbles a little bit because you're still, as we always say around here, you're still selling to a person. If you're selling
Right.
B2B, you're still
Exactly,
selling
at the
to,
end of the day.
yeah, you're still selling to people. So how do you connect with people? Well, you can connect with them using this sort of aesthetic brand positioning that a lot of these DTC brands or e-commerce brands are able to do. But the biggest objection that we face when talking to a B2B client who has really tight corporate branding is they say, well, we can't change our brand ID. We have really tight guidelines here. Well, that's fair. And we're not asking anybody to change your corporate brand ID. I mean, that's a big ask.
We're wanting some flexibility. is
Yeah,
what
we're
we're
just
asking
exactly.
Exactly.
We're just asking you to extend your brand for this particular campaign or to reach this particular niche audience because we feel like that extension and that brand fluidity is going to allow people to connect with your brand and have a better recall long term versus just seeing your corporate ID and doing this sort of brand extension allows it to stand out and take up space in somebody's brain.
That actually reminds me of a really good campaign we did with our friends over at Cloudflare, the Zero Trust Quest. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys remember that one.
For sure.
But they definitely leaned into just using that one campaign to reach another audience and really be creative. And they let us run with that.
It was based on the 90s point and click game King's
Mhm.
Quest,
Yeah.
which you guys, I don't know if you guys are, you definitely know, but
Gen Z.
I know I'm
I-
smiling like, yeah, that
yeah,
one.
we had old computers in my first grade classroom and I absolutely remember playing that game all
Yeah.
the time and I
Oh my
loved it.
gosh. Mhm.
But so, and it looks a lot like that. And Cloudflare allowing us to play with their brand and be fluid with it, but not get outside and crazy with their, corporate ID.
Right.
That made that campaign happen and allowed us to reach a segment of people and connect with them in a way that they wouldn't have been able to do just relying on their corporate
Exactly.
branding.
Exactly.
I think the reason that campaign was so successful is because we really leaned into nostalgic because we understood our audience and we knew
Mhm.
what would actually resonate with them.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. And given a lot of the folks that we were trying to target were a particular age in the 90s, that played us into it quite a bit. And they were able to connect with something like that a lot easier. And it was a lot more approachable and grounding than a, kind of lofty brand ID. I don't know.
Right. Prim and proper, super
Yeah,
professional.
very
It makes
squared
you,
away.
it's relatable, a little bit more relatable to make you actually want to engage.
Yeah, it allows them to engage on an emotional level. And that nostalgia triggers that connection and creates
Exactly.
that with a brand that they might not have been able to connect with.
That's actually perfect because that's exactly what we did, which leads us into our key takeaways.
Key takeaways.
Which our first one is listen closely.
Listen closely, bozos.
It's finding out what your ideal clients, like we talked about with Cloudflare, what they're
Mhm.
interested in, what's going to resonate with them, and using that to, again, reach your target audience and get your message across.
Yeah,
Totally.
absolutely. To me, it's all about social listening, but listening for the right things, listening for what types of, again, we're going to say it again, aesthetics
Yeah.
Aesthetics and
are
vibes.
resonating with the people that you're trying to reach. What type of e-commerce companies are they engaging with? What type of social media accounts that have nothing to do with work are hitting those target markets?
Right.
Yeah.
And
the personal interest.
yeah, the personal interests, the hobbies, what are they into? Because if you're, that all can relate and you can use that to extend your brand.
Like you said, is trying on these different aesthetics, which leads us into our second key takeaway is being fluid with your brand.
Here at VLG, we have several clients who sell Zero Trust, which is essentially the same product for everybody, but it's about how can you take a product that might be commoditized, like we talked about with Liquid
Mhm.
Death,
Yep.
but it's the same idea, it's the same principles, whether it's B2C or B2B.
It's how you're going to market that.
Exactly. How can you use branding and aesthetic brand positioning to stand out? So, for example, Rich had a great point. If you take 5 ads from 5 different companies, all selling Zero Trust, and covered up the logo and removed the color, would you be able to tell which brand it was?
Based off vibes.
Based off
Based off
vibes
straight
alone.
vibes?
Yeah.
No.
based off of the creative, you probably couldn't. Whereas I think MailChimp has done a great job of
Yes.
this
Oh, yeah.
from their crossover B2C, B2B. If you put MailChimp next to ActiveCampaign and HubSpot and Campaign Monitor, some of these other brands, I would absolutely be able to tell that ad was MailChimp or that piece of social content was MailChimp versus anybody else.
Really what they've done, which I think a lot of brands should do better, is they're pretty much dressing up their brand for these different occasions, these niches, these different tones, and they're not necessarily leaving the entire corporate ID behind, but they're just extending their corporate ID temporarily to fit into this aesthetic.
Actually kind of brings us to our third key takeaway, which is getting weird and putting your brand in new places that it wasn't before.
Yeah.
Which is a big thing we do here at VLG.
We actually do this pretty
we do
well.
keep ideas weird.
Yes.
They do.
You want a t-shirt. Basically, this is taking things that might seem a little bit random that don't really have anything to do with your product, but they're still like extending and hitting that ideal customer. It's like Liquid Death, which we were talking about. They do like a metal Spotify playlist.
Yeah, that's right.
And they also sponsored Metallica's latest tour.
Okay, see,
Yeah.
those are cool things that aren't necessarily pushing a can of water.
That have zero to do with their product directly, but have a lot to do with brand building and creating genuine connections with people that they're trying to reach.
But if you think about it, this also, it's a reoccurring theme. It plays into the dark funnel.
Absolutely.
So if you
Definitely.
don't make a buying decision right now, you're like, Liquid Death is that really cool playlist I listen to. Oh, I'm going to buy this water right now.
Yeah, or if you're like me and you still have, I've never tried Liquid Death, but now we've like talked about it a million times and
Yeah,
I've
you're gonna
seen a
have to.
million things
Oh,
on it.
yeah,
I'm like,
you're
I'm
gonna
definitely
have
gonna have to
to.
try Liquid Death now. Like, oh, now I have to try it. And it's not even something that I necessarily, I'm not a big metalhead. It's not like
Right.
my thing, but I'll absolutely try it now since we've talked about
We all will.
Because
We all
it's
will.
cool. So we've talked about a lot of things that you can do this with B2B, but I think kind of the one that wraps it up nicely is that even if you have an established brand ID, that we were trying to just extend it down into a different niche to hit different audiences. So you still want to ground your brand, but it's easier for that audience to grasp it.
Totally.
I agree. I think the biggest thing is it's fine to be serious with your corporate brand, but don't hold the reins so tightly that you crush the ability to get creative
be
with
relatable
it, be brand
even.
fluid and relate to audiences that might just completely glaze over your corporate ID. And you're missing out on a really fun way to engage with potential customers. And to me, I'm way more likely to connect with something that is in some way involved with something I'm interested in outside of work. Way more likely to. I don't know about you guys, but that's just
totally.
Us too. And guess what? If you need help doing it, BLG's
what?
very good at
at
doing
that.
it. We have so much
Look
experience.
at the plug. That was solid.
That was
That was
good.
solid, Savannah.
Thank you. I think so too.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you're interested in checking out some other videos, go ahead and click here and go over to vlgmarketing.com.